Hey everyone, today we're going to play a little game of What's the Difference? So we have here the original Bruce Lee deck from the Bruce Lee solo pack, and we have the Bruce Lee deck from the Lee versus Ali set, because as we know, Bruce was recently republished along with Muhammad Ali, and there were some changes made. Now, the changes that have been made are not anything mechanical that is changing how Bruce Lee plays. We just have a few cosmetic differences and a few things where we have differences in the effects and the way that they are worded. Bruce Lee was one of the earlier sets, and they've changed the way that they word a lot of effects now. We're just going to go through here and see what all we can spot. So we're going to start off with the obvious one, and that's the mini. The big differences being the pose. This one, Bruce is in the flying kick, which is pretty cool. We have the bases are different. The yellow there versus the sparkly gold in the original. Looking at a lot of the little details on here, just the musculature on him, the folds on the pants, the hair and everything. I wonder if this is the same digital model that was just re-rigged into a different pose, because a lot of the things match. The only thing that's really different is going to be just around the crotch area there, that they kind of smoothed that out just because of the position he was in. But everything else, all of the details line up exactly the same between them. So it just makes me wonder if that's what was going on. We do have the little plastic stand here that Bruce is on. How solid is that going to be? Well, we're going to have to just wait and see on that. I can't tell you. The health dials here look pretty similar. It's going to be a little hard to spot this on camera, but this one here on the right, which is the newer release, it has the contrast change, maybe the pitch a little bit. It seems pushed a little bit more towards the orange instead of yellow. The back piece is a little bit more orange. And here you can see some of the details, some of these fine details on the dragon here come out a little bit more. And once again, a little bit darker around there. On the back, pretty much looks the same. This is just slightly bit more orange. We do have the copyright thing here for Bruce Lee Enterprises, which is going to be one big thing. You're going to see that the cards and the dial on the original one didn't have the copyright notice on them. They just put that on the box. We'll go with the character card here. Now the big one here, Bruce Lee originally came out before they named the abilities. Well, now that the abilities are getting named, we see Bruce Lee's ability name. They say they have names for all of the abilities, whether they were ever named or not. They have names for all of them. We got to see this one, Fleet of Foot. As far as the coloring on it, it's pretty close. One here on the right, this background here seems a smidge darker. And once again, we have the copyright notice here on the new one. On the back, I really can't spot a whole lot of difference. The red has a slightly different shade to it there. That's probably just from just changes in printing, which is probably a lot of these color changes. But the quote down there, the successful warrior is the average man with laser-like focus. That has not changed. So we'll take a look at the cards. We'll look at the card back here to start with. Once again, these look pretty similar to each other here. The one on the right here seems to be just pushed a tad more into the yellowish range. This has a little bit more of an orange. And once again, we have the copyright notice down here on that. So looking at the actual cards, we'll look at these and we'll see that there is a difference in the wording on momentous shift. Originally, the during combat was if Bruce Lee started this turn in a different space, the value of this card is 5 instead. The new wording is during combat, if Bruce Lee started this turn in a different space, this card's value becomes 5. Now, there are more cards than just momentous shift that will do this, changing the value to a particular thing. But this wording, that it becomes 5 instead of the value of this card is 5 instead, this is something new for this set. I looked through all of the previous momentous shifts. They all have that wording there. I looked at every card that I could find that sets values like that up through volume 3, and they all use the original. The value of this card is X instead. Also, we've seen all the cards for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles set. I don't have that one yet because it hasn't shipped to North America at this point. But we've seen all the cards, and that one also uses this original wording. Not on momentous shift because they don't have, none of them have momentous shift, but they do have some other cards that set those values. So that's really interesting that Bruce Lee is kind of introducing a new wording here that really only Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali have at this point. One other thing for the front of the cards here, and this is really just not going to show up much on camera. I'll see if I can get it to. You kind of have this behind the text. There's always some little pattern in there. Bruce Lee was this yin-yang symbol there. And it's hard to notice it on the old one. And a lot of the newer sets, they've done a bit to pull this out a little bit more. But actually on this one, it's more difficult to see it on the new one. Like, I can't even get it to show up on camera. It is there, but just barely. It's kind of weird because, like I said, they've been doing a lot to try to pull those out. So it's odd to see that. As far as the artwork seems to be cropped and positioned identically on every card. I don't see any where there is any significant difference in the card art other than a little bit of the contrast and maybe the tint being shifted just a bit. Now going to Skirmish, we'll see that this is one that has a little bit different wording on the effect here. The original one was after combat. If you won the combat, choose one of the fighters in the combat and move them up to 2 spaces. The new Skirmish effect is after combat. If you won the combat, move a fighter in the combat up to 2 spaces. Now there has been 3 different Skirmish wordings. As I go through and look at all the previous Skirmish, now it started off with Volume 1 with this same wording that Bruce Lee has, where it was choose one of them. So you had like Alice, Bigfoot, Bruce, Jekyll and Hyde, King Arthur, Achilles, and Yananga, all taking that original choose wording. You interestingly have Spike and Buffy having a different wording than either of these two, which is if you won the combat, move one of the fighters in the combat up to 2 spaces. And we see Beowulf getting that same thing, as well as Golden Bat and Aridin. And Tomoe Gozen getting this same effect wording here that Bruce Lee has. So it's a little interesting that it's kind of bounced back and forth. And it doesn't look like there was one point where it switched over to one. We kind of have some back and forth going on, which is interesting. Next we have Little Dragon. This was, interestingly, the original foil for Bruce Lee, which at that point, Bruce was the only licensed character that had gotten a foil that foil is like even more unobtainium than the original Bruce set. One thing interesting about that, since the original cards don't have the copyright notice down there that these do, if you have that foil from the old set, you're really not going to be able to drop it into the new one. Well, I mean, you can, but anybody really eagle-eyed would be able to see when that card is showing up there, just because it would not have the copyright notice on it. But looking at the cards, there's a little bit of a difference. During combat, if your hand is empty, the value of this card is 6 instead. After combat, draw 2 cards. The new little dragon is, during combat, if your hand is empty, this card's value becomes 6. After combat, draw 2 cards. This card going with the new, this card's value becomes effect. The same as we had on the momentous shift. Won't be the only time that we'll see this with Bruce. We're going to go here to feint, and the wording is identical here. Cancel all effects on your opponent's card. No real difference there. Be Like Water will have a slight difference here. The original is after combat, choose a Jeet Kune Do card in your discard pile and add it to your hand. The new effect is return a Jeet Kune Do card from your discard pile to your hand. So just using the word return to put a card back in there. They seem to be wanting to get away from using choose on a lot of effects, the same as we saw with Skirmish, to just move away from that and go with a more simple effect. Taste of Blood. If Bruce Lee has 5 or less health, draw 3 cards. This is pretty much identical here, so nothing really different there. Regroup also being the same here. Draw 1 card. If you want to combat, draw 2 cards instead. Hoo-wah! Once again, we see the change here. Choose a Jeet Kune Do card in your discard pile and add it to your hand. Gain 1 action. This one's going to follow the same wording here from the new Be Like Water. Return a Jeet Kune Do card from your discard pile to your hand. Gain 1 action. Bring It On. This is the new foil card if you bought it from there, which has Bruce Lee's signature on it in foil. The card that comes by default with the set doesn't have the foil on it. That's just the promo that has that. The original, choose an opposing fighter in Bruce Lee's zone. Place them in any space adjacent to Bruce Lee. Gain 1 action. The new effect is choose an opposing fighter in Bruce Lee's zone and place them adjacent to him. Gain 1 action. So instead of saying place them into any space, just place them adjacent, which it would have to be an empty space to do that, and that kind of clears it up a little bit. Also, we see gain 1 action has been kind of pulled out separately and stuck under it there, which kind of means that it's a separate effect. 1-inch punch. Deal 2 damage to an adjacent fighter. If this defeats the fighter, return this card to your hand instead of discarding it. This one here just takes away some unnecessary words. Deal 2 damage to an adjacent fighter. If this defeats that fighter, return this card to your hand. The instead of discarding it's been removed because that's really not a necessary thing. Nunchaku. All of Bruce Lee's attacks this turn are +1 value. Gain 1 action. The new one, add +1 to the value of Bruce Lee's attacks this turn. Gain 1 action. So we see this kind of going into a little bit more of the standardized text there, saying to add +1 to the value instead of they are +1 value. And then once again, the gain 1 action is pulled down as if it is a separate effect there. This wording is also identical to what Michelangelo has on his nunchaku, so these will match. So we're getting to the Jeet Kune Do cards here at the end. Now one thing we do see with all of the Jeet Kune Dos here is that the text Jeet Kune Do is now bolded to make it stand out differently. So it's just a slight typography change there. Jeet Kune Do downward side kick. After combat, your opponent discards 1 random card, gain 1 action. These are pretty much identical. Jeet Kune Do intercepting fist. Immediately cancel all effects on your opponent's cards. After combat, gain 1 action. Once again, these are identical. Jeet Kune Do corkscrew finger jab and Jeet Kune Do corkscrew finger fan. So we see the name was slightly changed on this one. The speculation here is that Muhammad Ali does have a card named Jab in his deck, and maybe they wanted to get away from that and have it be a different name just to stop any confusion between them. So it is now Corkscrew Finger Fan. After combat, deal 1 damage to the opposing fighter, gain 1 action. No effect changes otherwise. Jeet Kune Do Wrist Lock. Draw 1 card, gain 1 action. While there is no change in the effect, we do see that in the original this was 2 lines. It's now bolded in 1 line. That didn't change the size of the text box or anything, so it's just an interesting change. Jeet Kune Do High Straight Lead. During combat, if either fighter started to turn in a different space, the value of this card is 5 instead, gain 1 action. The new effect, which falls in line with what we see on Momentous Shift and Little Dragon. During combat, if either fighter started this turn in a different space, this card's value becomes 5. After combat, gain 1 action. Also, looking at this here, we can see that the during combat and after combat effects are a little bit larger font. It's like they were able to bump it up just a bit since they were able to streamline that wording a little bit. And lastly here, Jeet Kune Do Short Lead Hook. Bruce Lee may swap spaces with the opposing fighter, gain 1 action. These cards are the same. So that is a quick look at the 2 Bruces, and a little bit here to let you see what changes were made in there, which once again don't have any real change in how anything works for him mechanically, but it's just interesting to see just how the wording for effects has evolved over the game. And this is a real great way to see how they've been able to streamline things and just kind of make things look a bit more smooth. If you want to see an actual full review of the Bruce Lee deck, I've had that video up for some time and you can take a look at that. We'll also have a video coming out shortly on the Muhammad Ali deck, so you can take a look at that as well. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and a like. You can go down into the comment section and let me know any thoughts that you have down there. And you can also subscribe to my channel. Make sure you catch all the videos that I post so you don't miss anything. This is Jeremy with Poindexter G, and we'll see you around next time.